Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I tried.
I'm not sure if anyone's speaking now, but if they are, we can't hear them or see them.
I had my microphone off, sorry. Okay, yeah, I was saying that was a great kirtan. Thank you so much for leading. And I have a tendency to draw a blank when I have to recite prayers. So if somebody would like to do it for me, that would be great.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Thank you very much. And thank you again, Bhakti Dana Mataji, for leading kirtan. So welcome everyone to Srimad-Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. And today it will be the friends. Hopefully we are all his friends. I hope I'm a friend. And we're starting today on text number 47 in the third canto, 24th chapter. And this is the renunciation of Caitanya Muni. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'll start off, and then if anyone wants to read, you can say in the chat, I'll read next or whatever. Okay, text 47. Icha dvesha vihinena sarvatra samachetasa bhagavad bhakti yuktena prapta bhagavati gati. Translation: freed from all hatred and desire, Caitanya Muni, being equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, ultimately attained the path back to Godhead. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, only by devotional service can one understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord, and after understanding him perfectly in his transcendental position, enter into the kingdom of God. The process of entering into the kingdom of God is Tripada Bhuti Gati, or the path back home, back to Godhead, by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life. Caitanya Muni, by his perfect devotional knowledge and service, achieved this ultimate goal, which is known as Bhagavati Gati. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 24th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Renunciation of Caitanya Muni. So, Is there anything anyone wants to say immediately about that? Otherwise, I was going to back up a couple of verses just to reorient ourselves so we, end this in firm understanding and, be situated firmly in the ending before we move on. Does anyone have any comments to make yet? Okay, so I have not been in class for a few days, so and have not watched old classes yet. Going back to previous text, trying to get there. So Kardama, basically he's achieved the goal of his life. He was ordered by his father to create progeny and help populate the universe. And he took that order upon his head. And it was his desire as well. He got himself a wonderful wife. He did some fantastic things as a grihasta. He made this fantastic aerial mansion, and he begat 9 good daughters who later married sages and went on to also populate the universe. And then he begat Lord Kudpila. And that you can't do better than that. that's as good as that's you can't do any better than that. You have the Supreme Lord as your son, and you follow your material duty, you fulfill your material duties. And then what did he do? He could have just sat there and rested on his laurels, and said, okay, I did what I was supposed to do, now I can enjoy. But no, he decided, he went back to what he was originally doing. He was trying to cultivate self-realization, and that's what he ended his life doing after he fulfilled his duties in this world. So this is exemplary for all of us. We can our business as human beings is to achieve self-realization. That's our business. But to survive in the material world, there's so many other things that we have to do. And there's so many obligations placed upon us. So to not create a disturbance because, so many people renounce in the name of self-realization, and then they go on to do nonsense. It's good to go through the ashrams. If you are able to go through the ashrams and you have that capacity, I'm saying it backwards. Not everyone has the capacity to stay brahmachari. Not everybody has the capacity to just engage in self-realization. Kapila had that capacity, but he was given the order to create progeny. So he went through the process of a varnashram system, and then he was successful in that, and then he went back to self-realization. Not all of us have that capacity to just do self-realization from the get-go. Therefore, varnashram. It's a way to dovetail our propensities. Prabhupada uses that word. It's not just something that, it's not like, oh, you like to play the guitar, you can do a rock band for Krishna. It's how to dovetail our desires, our material desires. We have desires for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And if you don't have a varnashram system, then you just live like an animal. So Saraswati Mataji says, Stared Tripad Bushu Gati, meaning 3 steps to entering the kingdom of Godhead. I am not getting what you're saying. Okay, the process of entering or the path. Okay, let's look it up. I'll look it up. If somebody else wants to look it up, they can. But I don't. My Sanskrit is not. I'm not so adept that I know this off the top of my head, so I will look it up. If somebody else wants to chime in, please do. Okay. Well, I'm roaming through database and I'm not seeing something immediately. There's something in a morning walk that somebody's quoting.
Sorry, no, I meant it's in the verse and there's been a spelling error. Supposed to be not Bushu, but Tripad Bhuti, the verse we just read.
Right. So, okay, but I'm just looking for another reference to explain it further.
Because I'm thinking Tripad means 3 steps.
Yeah, I don't know.
Specific steps. Like,
I don't know. That's why I'm looking it up
that...
to see if there's another reference that would expand on it. I'm not finding it yet. So maybe we could put a pin in that.
Yeah.
And then, please save that question and then we can ask Maharaj next time. I'm trying to get back to the verse here. Okay, so we'll move on to chapter 25. This is chapter 25, the glories of devotional service. And I forgot to recite the other invocation mantras. Sorry about that. Oh, so who would like to read text 1 of chapter 25? Saraswati, would you like to read?
All right. Sonakya uvacha kapilastatva sankhayata bhagavan atma mayaya jata swayamaja sakshat atma pragnapatya nranam. Translation. Sri Sonakya said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Purport. The word Atma Pragnapatya indicates that the Lord descends for the benefit of the human race to give transcendental knowledge. Material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in the Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one's knowledge expands. On the platform of passion, there is no knowledge, for passion is simply an impetus to enjoy material benefits. On the platform of ignorance, there is no knowledge and no enjoyment, but simply life almost like that of animals. The Vedas are meant to elevate one from the mode of ignorance to the platform of goodness. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he is able to understand knowledge of the self or transcendental knowledge. This knowledge cannot be appreciated by an ordinary man. Therefore, since a disciplic succession is required, this knowledge is expounded either by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself or by his bona fide devotee. Sonaka Muni also states here that Kapila, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took birth or appeared simply to appreciate and disseminate transcendental knowledge. Simply to understand that one is not matter, but spirit soul, aham brahmasmi, I am by nature Brahma, is not sufficient knowledge for understanding the self and his activities. One must be situated in the activities of Brahman. Knowledge of those activities is explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Such transcendental knowledge can be appreciated in human society, but not in animal society, as clearly indicated here by the word nirnam, for the human beings. Human beings are meant for regulated life. By nature, there is regulation in animal life also, but that is not like the regulative life as described in the scriptures or by authorities. Human life is regulated life, not animal life. In regulated life, only can one understand transcendental knowledge. So it's just making it very clear that having theoretical knowledge is not sufficient. You have to engage. in those activities in order to realize and experience the actual benefits of devotional service. In the beginning, we see it all around us, especially those very attached to material life, that they don't want rules and regulations. Or if there are rules and regulations, they're very often desiring to flaunt the rules and regulations. There's some, I know of some people who really relish trying to beat the policeman, like let's see how many laws we can break. And there seems to be a thrill to that. How many rules and regulations can we break and get away with it? Of course, we know that, maybe in the human sphere, you might be able to get away with things, but certainly not here. There's going to be consequences for every action. I thought it was very interesting where they talk about, like, you've got to get onto the platform of goodness minimum in order to get an appreciation for transcendental knowledge, or to even begin to appreciate devotional service. And sometimes it makes me think, like, this mode of passion. I sometimes think about, like, you're driving in a very fast car and everything's you're just whizzing by everything. You don't even know half the time where you are, or you're just got your foot on the pedal to the metal, and then everything is just a blur. So even the mind is like that. It's just going at such a fast rate that you don't even really observe what is happening around you, let alone inside of yourself. So this mode of goodness, at least you're trying to keep the mind at somewhat of a peaceful state, in which then you can concentrate and focus on what you're hearing in terms of transcendental knowledge. Sometimes we want to see with our eyes, but really the mind, you see with the eye of your mind. When we hear of Krishna's pastimes, we don't see with our material eyes, but the eye of your mind, you can see. When you hear of Krishna's pastimes, you can almost see it in front of you unfolding, because it's through the eye of your mind. So it's very important. This mind is a very important sense of all the other senses. So in order to try and be at peace and keep your mind at peace so that it's not agitated, and so then you can really concentrate and focus on what you're hearing. The hearing is very important. Of course, we're told time and time again, as is associating with devotees. I think this sadhu sangha, sat sangha, this is very, very important. It's the key. And in the beginning, it's the most important thing. Well, I wouldn't say even in the beginning. I think throughout your spiritual life, there's been indications that rather than endeavoring to associate directly with Krishna and wanting that personal association, it's more important to try and search for the associations of sadhus, those that are fixed in devotional service, who've made it their life and their mission and their business to do only that, serve Krishna in pure devotional service. So these are some of the thoughts that are coming to my mind. And it's important that in the human form of life, you have to have a regulated life. You can't just be running around willy-nilly and then thinking that, okay, well, that's going to be enough for me then to, at the end of my life, become Krishna conscious. It's not possible. Sometimes I hear people say that, oh, well, I'm enjoying myself, and I believe it's a regulated life. I'm going through the Varna and ashrams, and, right at the last stage of my life, I'm quite confident I'll remember Krishna and I'll be able to say the name of Krishna. And sometimes I've been around people that have been so confident, but at the last stage of their life, when they're going, they can't even speak, and death is like literally upon them, and they're not thinking of Krishna. They haven't practiced thinking of Krishna, performing devotional service, and the last thing they think about is Krishna. So practice, the sadhana bhakti is completely important. Never stay in the false hope that you can skim through the varna ashram enjoying and then right at the last breath, you're going to be able to remember Krishna. That's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. It's almost kind of like they're trying to what's the word, game the system. It's not a matter of what you think of at the very last minute. It's what you cultivate as your desire in life, you know. And if you're cultivating a desire, it's like, oh, I want to be happy in my family, or I want to be in my career, or whatever. You know, that's what you're cultivating. That's you're molding your own consciousness by what you pursue. Which, when you were talking about cars and going fast, I was thinking two things. Prabhupada used to refer to Western civilization. You know, there's the phrase going at a breakneck speed. And he would invert the words, and he'd say, instead of a breakneck civilization, he would say neck break. Neck break civilization. And he would, you know, one of his criticisms of modern culture was, you know, the cars going back and forth. So that made me, what you were saying made me think of that. And also, I was thinking, what are people doing in cars? They're trying to get to another place. They're in pursuit of something, which is practically in the secular shastra of the United States of America, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so we're all just pursuing constantly. Ananta Shesha Prabhu said in the chat, an example of regulation in animal life. And I replied, winter hibernation, mating season, migration. And animals pretty much stick to their assigned diets. They don't, you know, you don't see the lamb trying to, you know, horn in on the vulture's corpse feast, you know, or the vulture eating the lamb's grass. You know, they're regulated. And I was thinking about that too, that yeah, animals just do whatever, but they are controlled by nature. You know, like certain animals with mating seasons, they don't mate outside those seasons. When it's time, then they mate. And it's not like they think, oh, I'm controlling myself. There's not a matter. It's not a matter of self-control, but they are controlled by nature. But the difference is that human beings, you know, they learn to control themselves. And also, animals tend to have a natural control of their eating and their sleeping, their mating and their fending. You know, rarely do you see animals killing just for no apparent reason. Like sometimes animals like apes will kill for no apparent reason, but it's very rare. It's not typical to see that so much. But human beings, they have the ability to kill themselves. And at the same time, they'll do all these horrible things for no reason whatsoever. They don't kill just to defend themselves. They don't have sex just to procreate. They don't eat just to stay alive. What is it? Eating, sleeping, and they'll take all kinds of intoxicants so they can sleep more than they usually do, you know? So it's like we have the capacity to control ourselves at will, and yet we don't do it. We do just the opposite. We indulge our senses to a ridiculous degree. And I'm just thinking, you know, people talk about freedom, but when you have so much freedom, they have what's called the tyranny of choice. You can't even make up your mind what you want, you know? And so you try to take everything, or you give up and you don't take anything. You know, I'm just talking about in terms of satisfaction of the senses, or, you know, any type of choice. People have so many choices, they often don't know what to do. But the point still remains is that we have the capacity to control ourselves, to control our senses, and yet, as a whole, the human race does everything but control its senses. They just indulge in them and, you know, go for maximum gratification, to the point where whatever you've done is not enough. Whatever you've tried to achieve is not enough. Or let's say, you know, an example, you eat and you're satisfied, and then, you know, for whatever reason, you eat more and you get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this, you used to be satisfied with 2 plates of food. Now you're not satisfied with 5 plates of food. And so this freedom to do whatever you want, it doesn't end in happiness. Ananta Shesha Prabhu, he makes the point of saying regulative principles of freedom. Right, because when you regulate yourself, then you do not become the servant of your senses. So you can be free to choose. If you make a choice, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow the recommendations, the orders, the instructions of my spiritual master and of the Shastra. Then it's like all of this other stuff, all this, bombardment of the senses that our culture gives us. You're not vulnerable to it. So anyways, does anybody else have any comments on this? I thought it was a wonderful purport. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that very often we see that there's more discipline and regulation in the animal society, more and on top of what you've just listed. Like if you think about bees and wasps and carrying out dutifully their activities in a colony, you don't see rebellion taking place or greed. One insect wants more than the other. They're all working harmoniously, serving the queen.
Yeah.
In the colony. So I was reading about this dog in Japan. Sorry, I know dogs are really known for their loyalty, which sometimes amazes me, like the kind of fierce loyalty that they display. You don't even sometimes see that in human beings. And there was this dog. He was from the time he was a puppy, he was found at the railway station abandoned, and this one person found him and raised him and fed him and whatever. And the dog, very often he enjoyed going to the train station back and forth to see off the owner. And he knew instinctively when the owner would be arriving on which train, what time that would be, and he'd be right at the station to meet him. And the owner died while at work, but this dog, he continued to wait for him at the station until he was dragged away or fed at the station. But he just waited and waited for this owner to show up, and actually died there at the station. So it just made me think, oh, this is an animal. It displays more loyalty than I could ever display, and if that was a Vaishnava's dog, I just think the spiritual progress that dog would have made, being so attached to this Vaishnava without any question. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, dogs are known for loyalty, but the thing is, as Ananta Shesha Prabhu mentioned in the chat, he says involuntary regulation. It's very not likely we can get inside the mind of a dog, although people who study animals, they can understand animals to a greater degree than the average person. But the dog, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it doesn't seem so likely to me that the dog is thinking consciously, I don't care. I am going to wait at this train station until my master comes back. The dog probably has a need to see that person, and that's the only place he knows where to go to find him, but it's not like, a husband going off to war and the wife saying, I am not going to have anything to do with any other men. She's doing that consciously. She's making a conscious choice. There's probably many temptations, but she knows why she's doing what she's doing. Whereas we might say that the dog doesn't know why it's doing that. It's just doing it because it has to, So I can't say for sure, but it seems like that might be one element of it, at least in other respects, animals are not doing things like the bees. The bees are not thinking, oh, we all have to get along and play fair, They're like, no, they do their job and that's all they do. And it doesn't enter their minds. Oh, like, oh, that guy's got more honey than I do. Let me go steal it, So I don't know, but we do know that human beings have the choice, and we don't exercise the choice in favor of self-regulation. We do the exact opposite. What do you think?
I think we need to learn how to appreciate more.
Yeah.
And not be so greedy and trying to covet what someone else has, and this whole business of being envious. We need to be satisfied with what we've been given and appreciate that, and use it in the service of Krishna. Haribol.
Haribol. It's an interesting tension there, because why do we want more? Why do we want more? And I think we're in these material bodies which severely limit us. Okay. if we were in our spiritual bodies, our powers and our capacity to enjoy would be godlike compared to what we have now. Except when a person is in pure spiritual consciousness, they're not thinking, oh, let me enjoy my godlike powers and my godlike capacity to enjoy. All they think is, I want to serve Krishna. And they're able to do it because that's all they want to do. And they're not having any covering over themselves. I need to try to enjoy. So we've messed ourselves up. We've screwed ourselves over because we have a capacity and powers beyond our imagining if only we act as servants of Krishna, but we're willing to take this paltry shrinking of our powers and our capacities, which are only borrowed from Krishna anyways, and not even borrowed. It's like we're in the grips of the material energy and we're like puppets, but we have some capacity and some powers assigned to us. And instead of trying to magnify those by serving Krishna, we shrink them even further by trying to enjoy the material energy. So we have this innate capacity. I want to do more. I want to be more. I want to have more. But we don't understand what the source of the more is, what the object of being more is. We think it's to enjoy in the material body. And so we're constantly at war with ourselves, trying to, we don't know who we are. And if we did, then we would be everything that we ever dream of being in its fullness and its perfection. But because we identify with matter, with this idea of being more is just petty and silly and ambition and greed and whatever, it's the perverted reflection. Because there's greed in the spiritual world, but what is that greed? It's the greed to serve Krishna. But in this material world, the greed is to, have material goods and material power and material, opulences of all sorts. And yet, you see people who get millions and millions of dollars, and don't they, a lot of times they just seem so petty. There's nothing very interesting about them, except maybe they invented something that made them billionaires or whatever. But they don't seem like very interesting people, They're certainly not talking about anything that everybody could benefit from. Usually if you're going to benefit from something a billionaire created, then you need to spend your money and keep spending it, But Prabhupada, he came and gave transcendental knowledge for free and liberated so many people, and he wrote these books that people are going to become liberated from reading them, into the far, beyond the foreseeable future, and you can get those books for free if you really want to. You don't have to pay, it's like you can find them online. You can find them, in somebody's apartment that they never read them. That's how my husband became a devotee. He found one of Prabhupada's books that a friend didn't read and left in his apartment, and, he didn't pay a dime for it. So, so many stories, people finding books in the trash, and their lives changing. So, these people who achieve huge material success, they don't really do anything that ultimately benefits anybody. So they're not very interesting. It's like, yeah, you've got billions of dollars, but there's nothing to them, So anyways, any other comments on this, or shall we move to the next text? Text 2, right? Wait. You read text 2, right, Saraswati?
No, I read text 1. So we are on text 2.
Oh, that's right. I read the last one. Okay. So text 2, Dana Mataji Prabhu, could you please read text 2?
Sure. Nahi asya vashmana punsam varmana sarva yoginam vishrita shruta devasya uri tripyanti me svaha. Shanika continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Vedas also. Ekoba Panam Yo Vedam Titi Kaman. He is the supreme living entity and is supplying the necessities of all other living entities. Thus, all other living entities, both Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, are subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Same concept is confirmed here. Nahi asya varsmanaha pumsam. Amongst the living entities, no one can surpass the Supreme Person because no one is richer, more famous, stronger, more beautiful, wiser, more renounced than he. These qualifications make him the Supreme Godhead, the cause of all causes. Yogis are very proud of performing wonderful feats, but no one can compare to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is associated with the Supreme Lord is accepted as a first-class yogi. Devotees may not be as powerful as the Supreme Lord, but by constant association with the Lord, they become as good as the Lord himself. Sometimes the devotees act more powerfully than the Lord. Of course, that is the Lord's concession. Also used here is the word varamnaha, meaning the most worshipful of all yogis. To hear from Krishna is the real pleasure of the senses. Therefore, he is known as Govinda, for by his words, by his teachings, by his instructions, by everything connected with him, he enlivens the senses. Whatever he instructs is from the transcendental platform, and his instructions, being absolute, are non-different from him. Hearing from Krishna or his expansion or plenary expansion, like Kapila, is very pleasing to the senses. Bhagavad Gita can be read or heard many times, but because it gives great pleasure, the more one reads Bhagavad Gita, the more he gets the appetite to read and understand it, and each time he gets new enlightenment. That is the nature of the transcendental message. Similarly, we find that transcendental happiness in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The more we hear and chant the glories of the Lord, the more we become happy. Jai.
Jai, thank you. Comment in the chat. Oh, that's the text was posted. Thank you. Any comments, Dana Prabhu?
I really, let me see where it was. It was interesting when it said devotees may not be as powerful as the Supreme Lord, but by constant association with the Lord, they become as good as the Lord himself. These are just really great reminders throughout this whole purport, and just reminders to just stay connected and to keep reading and to keep associating. And when we don't have those, or I can speak for myself, when I don't have those things, it's easier for Maya to sweep in and for the chance of forgetting, Krishna. So I found this is a really good reminder, this whole entire purport. And of course, I loved the way it ended. The more we hear and chant the glories of the Lord, the more we become happy. I mean, how perfect is that? So those were my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. That was my realization a long time ago, at the beginning of my Krishna consciousness, is that when you have friends in devotional service, we say good association, that's kind of a formal word. But if you make friendship with really nice devotees, and there's different ways of being friends. You can be friends with a senior devotee and you have more of a, like maybe a mentor-mentee relationship. And you what I mean is to act in friendly ways and to accept their affectionate dealings and to try to serve them in friendly ways, not just, oh, I'm going to, clean your room or whatever. And that's my service, but to be a friend to devotees, especially advanced devotees, in the appropriate ways. And when you have those friendships and then there's that bond of affection, it's very, very unlikely to go away from Krishna consciousness, because how can you leave your friends? How can you leave people that you care about? So And Panchatattva Prabhu has joined us. And Yoganananda Mataji. Hare Krishna.
We didn't realize we had crossed time zones.
Oh,
We thought we were getting on in time and everything.
that'll get you.
The illusory energies conquered us momentarily here, or for the millionth time, actually. Anyway.
What is that? I'm trying to remember that quote. Time is an illusion imposed on us because of our desire to enjoy separately from Krishna.
Yeah.
Surabhi Kunj says in the chat, sometimes, this is a quote, sometimes the devotees act more powerfully than the Lord. Of course, that is the Lord's concession. And she says, this made me think of how Srila Prabhupada spread the holy name all over the world after that first kirtan at Tompkins Square Park, which was on this day 57 years ago. Wow. Jai. All glories to Tompkins Square Park. And especially the kirtans there. Anantashesha Prabhu writes in the chat, I realized a few days ago that, quote, devotee association is not doing fun things with devotees. Yeah. I just wanted to share a story. I knew a group of devotees once, and it was part of a community. And one time they had a get together, and it was like a little picnic. And it was a bunch of ladies together. And during the picnic, they were serving snacks that were not offerable, like had garlic and onions in them or stuff like that. And there was no kirtan. It was just a bunch of gossip. And I got very uncomfortable. I was still a new devotee at that point, new bhaktin. And I got very uncomfortable. And I thought, this isn't good. This isn't going to end well. And not very long after that, it turned out that one of the members of that little group had stolen the credit cards of a woman who was purportedly her best friend in that group and went on a buying spree. And it just turned into a huge scandal. And I'm thinking, if you're not associating on a Krishna conscious level, whatever your worst propensities are going to come out, and your relationships are going to go to hell eventually, one way or another. But they were all having fun. They were having a good time. But there was no kirtan, if there was any prasadam, it was hidden and with the other non-prasadam foods. And it was disturbing to see, because what's the point? What's the point of hanging out with all these people if it's not Krishna consciousness? My husband says, I also put highlighter on the sentence, the more we hear and chant the glories of the Lord, the more we become happy. Many people in this world, it seems, would rather think they're, quote, right than actually be happy. When we offer real happiness to them, they say, no thanks. Well, yeah, they have a bias. They have a materialistic bias. And then Surabhi Kunj says, actual devotional service is more fun. Yes. Okay, let's take a little poll here. This has happened to me? I just want to know if it's happened to anyone else. Have you ever been in a kirtan and been so happy that you think, I would be happy to leave my body right now? And the kirtan was just so amazing, and you just felt so wonderful in the kirtan. You think, I could leave my body right now and I'd be okay with it. Okay, Saraswati says absolutely. Anybody else? Surabhi Kunj says yes. Okay, 2's not bad. Oh. As she says, I wanted that kirtan to never end. Well, keep it in your heart. So, I think that's maybe not kirtan, maybe some other, you're doing some service for the deity, or you're looking at the deity and you think, oh, I could go right now. I could be happy to leave right now. Because your consciousness is so high, and just think, I know I felt that way, and then I forget, but imagine if you feel that way all the time, and just any minutes, like I'm just happy thinking of Krishna, serving Krishna, and he can take me at any time. That was Prabhupada's mood, he was he wanted to do his service. He wanted to do his service, and he would, you know, he was keen to do it, but he was also completely surrendered that if Krishna wanted him, he was ready to go. He had no fear. So wow, to live like that all the time, it's amazing. I don't know if anybody is living like that right now in our group. It's certainly not me, but it's a goal. It's a life goal to just be that surrendered and that fearless. But how can you be that fearless except by completely surrendering from moment to moment to moment? Saraswati says, there have been times I didn't want to separate from advanced devotees. Their love for bhakti seemed to radiate to me. Yes. Yes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Mayavadi's love of Godhead just by, you know, basically looking at them, you know, speaking to them. It didn't take, you know, he was able to, he made that connection because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but also great devotees, they are able to touch people's hearts and you know, make that connection. Once Surabhi Kunj Mataji says, once someone asked me, what do you like to do for fun? I responded saying book distribution, reading Srimad-Bhagavatam, going to the temple and seeing the deities. And then the person said, no, I meant like outside Krishna consciousness. Oh. There is nothing outside Krishna consciousness. It's all Maya. It's all an illusion. It's all nonsense. So what did you say to them?
I said that Krishna consciousness is fun. So, like, why do we need to do things outside of it to have fun?
I think if there's I don't know the dictionary definition of fun. If somebody wants to look it up, they can. But to me, fun or play is, you know, because what do we do for fun? We play somehow, you know, at least as children, that's what we do. But the idea of just doing something for pleasure, not to get any result from it, you're just doing it because you enjoy it, you know? So this person probably thinks that you know, you do something in Krishna consciousness because you're trying to get a result. But the process of devotional service and the goal are the same. Chanting leads to more chanting and service leads to more service, right? So that's the definition of fun. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because you enjoy it, because you love it, because it makes you happy. We have reached the end of our time. Does any last comments? And if not, would Panchatattva Prabhu like to lead the closing kirtan?
Sure, why not? Haribol. Let's have fun.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
I had a closing comment.
Please do.
When you run a temple, sometimes there's stress between devotees, and you know, things aren't quite working out between this Prabhu and that Prabhu because of whatever, you know, personality conflicts. You got to kind of smooth things over. We were running a temple, I won't say where. My wife, she just, I don't know, she knew the fine art of getting people together to do things. We went for an afternoon canoeing on a river. Now that sounds entirely like Maya, but the whole idea was, all right, this is an outing. We're all devotees. We're all a devotee family. Let's just chill. Just take a few hours to associate with each other, you know, as friends, and float down a river. And we did that, and it was actually really good for the whole camaraderie of the temple. And when the devotees got back to the temple, they were back on fire. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, we should find all kinds of things to do outside of the temple, but I don't particularly think that activity together as devotees was outside the realm of Krishna consciousness, because we brought prasadam and went down the river in the canoes, and then we had prasadam and we had a little bhajan, and the idea was, let's set aside the things that we think are splitting us apart and come together this way. And it works. Those types of things can work. So I just wanted to offer that as a point. Sometimes in the name of being Krishna conscious, we can discard just being kind to each other.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. And we were talking about regulated activities, that human beings regulate their activities. Relaxation and recreation are also part of those regulated activities. It's not, if you have responsibilities, sometimes you just need to take a break. And that's part of being a regulated human being. Praveen Prabhu, I'm going to read his comment real quick, and then we can have kirtan when you're ready. Devotee says, what is recreation for a Krishna conscious person? Prabhupada, recreation? Dancing. Laughter. Come on, dance with us. Is it not recreation? And when you get tired, take prasadam. Do you want more recreation than this? We don't charge anything for this dancing. You go to ball dance and so many other dances. You pay for it, but we don't charge. So practically, this is a system of recreation only. Yes, if you seriously think, you'll find this system, there is no labor at all, simply recreation. Susukam. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we Westerners like to do things like go down, rowing down a river too, so.
Yeah, well, that temple was really in Maya.
Well, the thing is too, is that nature, Prabhupada, I can't remember the purport right now, but Prabhupada talks about how being in places of scenic natural beauty, where there are bodies of water, lakes and rivers and ducks and swans, he says that's good for the mind,
Yeah.
And
Prabhupada took his morning walks. Prabhupada took his morning walks every day, and the devotees were always trying to take him to very nice places, scenic, natural beauty, and so forth.
Yeah. So sometimes the mind needs to get out of the four walls and go see some trees and water and ducks and things like that. It's just, we're in these material bodies, and sometimes we need to reconnect with nature and beauty and things like that. Just materially speaking. Anyways. All right, Prabhuji.
Hare, excuse me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa, Trivrajagacharya Astotra Sata Shishimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Privrajagacharya Astotra Sata Shishimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakun Radhakun Girgavadan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samabeta Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening and contributed their thoughts, their words, or simply your attention. And we consider your association invaluable. And Murari Gupta Prabhu also says, thank you to all concerned. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and the assembled devotees. Jai. So, Srimad-Bhagavatam class ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. I was waiting for Panchatattva Prabhu to do it.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bo. Good night, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Good night.